Hello, Hopkinton. It is Wednesday, May the 12th at 7 p.m., which means it is time for the Hopkinton Hangout Hour. And we are all very glad that you were able to join us. Whether you're watching us live, maybe on our YouTube channel and posting a question or a comment, or if you're catching us on TV, or if you're catching us later on a rebroadcast, thank you very much for taking the time as we try to bring to you parts of Hopkinton. I would be bereft to say that this is the first time that I've been on since the recent tragedy that's happened in our community. And I know that Hopkinton is strong. And I know that there are lots of resources. And I really encourage anyone who needs to avail themselves of any type of resources that they do, please look for that and take care of yourselves, and let's keep talking to each other. This evening, I am bringing on a team, the Freedom Team in Hopkinton, which you may have known that I have brought on before, and they are doing lots of really wonderful things in our community, and I'm very, very happy that they're joining us here again tonight to talk about some of the upcoming things they have and what's happening in their corner of Hopkinton. So right now, there may be another one or two, but right now we have Freya Proudman, Kathleen Dinsmore, Dawn Alcott, and Sarah Watson joining us. So thank you so much all for being here. Okay, they're all waving, but nobody's talking, so you can't see them. All right, so let's go ahead and unmute because we're just going to have a conversation now. If any of us have a pet that gets noise in the background, we can mute while we're not talking. But other than that, please welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us again, Jim. It's a real honor.
All right, and today I'm actually pleased to say that Freya is not making me jealous by joining us from London, England. She's back home visiting family. So welcome back home, Freya.
Thank you. It's very nice to be home.
All right. And just to touch base, Dawn, Sarah, are you all doing well, I hope?
Doing well. Thank you for having us.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jim.
Okay. All right, Kathleen, let's start with you because I have been reading the word training in relation to the Freedom Team. So let's talk about what's coming up for training.
Yeah, I think that this is really one of the more powerful and beneficial things that our town can be doing right now, and especially in light of Michaela's death, when people have been asking us, what can I do? I think this is something that really can benefit all of us. It can not only empower us to be able to act as an active bystander when we witness or are the target of some sort of bias, but we can also stand up for others, and we can also learn to listen very deeply and show much greater understanding and empathy, and try to repair some of the division that has been occurring in our community for a very long time.
Okay, let's start with that because I've actually heard that phrase before, but in case someone hasn't, what is the definition of an active bystander? Anyone?
Yeah, anyone can answer that one.
All right, Sarah, you want to jump in on that?
Well, I think it's and you can correct me if I'm wrong, an active bystander would be somebody who is involved, has some proximity to a situation. I went through the training and I found it just super helpful and useful and practical. we broke out into little breakout rooms on Zoom and practiced responses of de-escalating, taking pauses, saying, hey, I was uncomfortable with that. They let you figure out kind of what your preferred verbiage is for saying things. And it was just super helpful because you think, how many moments in life have we been in where you think, oh man, if I could just rewind, I would do it different. Well, one of the reasons why we don't do it different when we're in the moment is because we haven't had any practice. And how many things in your life do you practice saying this is something that it's really good to get that practice and support and do it in a safe environment with friends. So it was just really helpful to have some of useful tools, useful things to say, and practice saying that, hey, when you hear something that, might be hurtful or not helpful, certainly, how can you react and respond well? Because I also think the reality is most of us will hear things that are not helpful, that are hurtful, and how do we respond well in that? So in a way that doesn't escalate or accuse. And honestly, the training was also fun. It was fun to talk to other people. They had great situations and scenarios that came from the community. So that's my perspective on being part of the training. It was great. And a very quick answer to your question about what a active bystander is.
So it's actually really interesting because it's almost like opposites, right? It's active and it's bystander. And, we've heard so much of people who are bystanders, who are standing and watching something happen.
Mm-hmm.
But this training for active bystander, and by what you were saying, Sarah, examples of how to get involved. Dawn, can you give us any more perspective on that?
Sure. I mean, it's the opposite of being a passive bystander, right? So like it's the opposite of not doing anything or not knowing what to do or being frozen. Because I think when we hear something hurtful, we can have a reaction to like get up in someone's face and fight, like that fight, flight, or freeze. Or we like, I didn't hear that. We take off, right? Or it's that freeze, like we don't know what to do. And so it really, practicing, as Sarah said, really helps take away, that fear. Because we were with safe people, and the actors are safe, but they don't let you off the hook, but they don't push you either. It's really quite amazing. When Sarah said that it was fun, it truly is fun. We had a lot of laughs, and it's a tough topic, and so you think, how are you laughing in this training? But at our own foibles, at our own acting skills, and you don't have to be a great actor or actress to do this. You just have to be human. And, we spent some time talking it through and changing up something that was said. The part for me that was really beautiful is the lack of judgment for the person who said the wrong thing. We've all been in those shoes, right? Like, open mouth, insert foot, right?
Yeah.
And then that person can walk away from a situation hating themselves if they're really sensitive. Or like later on, when somebody says something to them about it, being defensive or being really sad or disconnected. Maybe they think, I won't go hang out with that person ever again because they said that to me. It doesn't have to be that way, right? So that, when you hear somebody say something, maybe it's an offensive joke and they've always heard it and it's the way it's always been. And so being an active bystander, you step in and say, ooh, ouch, that joke's pretty offensive, actually. Can I talk to you about that later on? Or, even in that moment, just tapping them out, and saying, hey, can I speak to you for a minute? And then having that presence of caring and love for that person to tell them the truth about how it's impacting others, but also loving them well in the moment, and caring for them, and protecting them a little bit too. It's that part of it was very inspirational. And so I can tell you, in our sessions, something like uncorked for me, like that, in a previous experience that I had when somebody had been making statements about people that struggle financially in a negative way on another job that I had. And that was the scenario that got brought up. And I got to act out the part of the person who was saying unkind things. And I got to embody the person who had done something hurtful in conversation with me. And, you know, like later that day when it was over, I was all like light and airy, like at home. And, you know, you can ask my husband and daughter, I'm not always an angel. And they said, whatever you were doing, go back and do more of that. You're in a really good mood today. So what I can tell you is that it works. It like the freeing feeling I felt playing the part, like I didn't realize I had carried that hurt all that time. I just thought, oh, great, I've got a good character to play because I've got something, you know, that I can use for this. And I didn't realize how that hurt had really impacted me. And then to have other people in the room, like play out the rest of it with me, you know, in the room on the Zoom,
Right.
it was incredibly helpful.
You know, I know this isn't one of those trainings, but I find it so fascinating because when I think of those types of situations, I only see two paths. I see the passive bystander, or I see the confrontation where, you know, somebody is taking that person to task for what's happening. But you're kind of outlining a third path, which it's not a little of both, but it is definitely, to me, it sounds like it is confronting, but it's not negative confronting. It's like in a way that is helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to also weigh in and give a little more information about the training as well for anyone who might be interested, as we are offering an upcoming training. I myself bring a little bit of a different perspective to this, being something a lot of people don't actually know about me is that I'm a first generation US immigrant. So I actually come from a cultural and linguistic minority group, and I'm also largely involved with the LGBT community. And as a young person from a social minority group, it was very heartwarming and very moving for me to see all these people show up at our last training, especially people from some of the, you know, older generations who essentially all given up their Saturday to be there because they wanted to learn tools to help them make Hopkinton a more inclusive, a safer, and a welcoming place for people like me and people from other social and racial minority groups. And, you know, we know by now that our town has work to do. You know, we know Hopkinton is not immune to racism or prejudice, but I do believe that people are trying, and you know, they hear us, they can see us, and they really want to do something about this. And I think this active bystander training is a great first step forward for many of the people who are, you know, sitting at home thinking, you know, I want to learn more tools, I want to help make the town more inclusive. So I would really recommend this to anyone. And I really can't stress enough how important having good allies are to racial and social minority groups, and how much of a positive impact allies can have on our lives, like honestly make or break situations. So yes, I would really encourage anyone to go to this workshop. So just a little more information about the workshop is it's organized by our organization, the Hopkinton Freedom Team, but the training itself is actually delivered by True Story Theater. They are professionals. They're, I think, improv and acting professionals, but they also do this workshop kind of throughout the state, I believe. And they were brilliant. I was very, very impressed with them. The sessions are broken up into 2 sessions. So it's 2 weekends with a couple weeks in between the 2. And each session is, I believe, 2.5 hours long, which might seem intimidating. I know to me at the time, I was like, oh, 2.5 hours looking at the screen is a long time. But honestly, like everyone else said, it went so quickly. You didn't even notice that the time went, honestly. And I really enjoyed the fact that they almost give you a packet and they go through the exercises with the packet next to you and say, okay, now we're going to look at this page. We're going to read this scenario. We're going to show it, demonstrate it for you, and then you're going to try it in groups. So it was really nice to do those breakout groups, but they didn't just like throw you in the deep end and say, good luck. They really gave you those tools so that you felt comfortable then going in on your own and improvising and trying to actively use those skills in a safe environment. And it really felt as if everybody everybody was on the same level. There was so many people in this meeting that I'd never met before, but I came away feeling very close to people and very comfortable. And what was very powerful about it is that we were all making growth together. It really felt that we were all learning. And like somebody else had already said, it was not a judgmental environment, and it was a great place to make mistakes and to learn from them. So I can't speak more highly about this training. I would really recommend it.
So that's so interesting. I'm wondering, I just have a question about this. There's a lot of talk in our society and in our culture now about having an uncomfortable conversation. And that is important for us to grow. And is active bystander training, is that kind of like uncomfortable conversation triage, like where and something is happening. It's not like, okay, you know what? We're going to like get in a safe space and we're going to get a cup of coffee or hot chocolate and we're going to like prepare ourselves to have a conversation. But it's actually like you're just kind of going down the street and all of a sudden you come upon an instance which needs some active bystanding. And so is it kind of like uncomfortable conversation emergency, you know what I mean? Like meaning instantaneous?
Jim, it's all those things. So like the first session we did scenarios with people known to us, right? So it might be like you're with, a group of friends, or you're at church, or you are at a public meeting and, a sideways comment is made by somebody possibly known to you. And like later on, you call them up and you say, like maybe you talk to the person who was hurt by it first, and you make sure they're okay, or you let them know what you heard wasn't okay and you join them. But with the other person, maybe they've moved on to another social group, they're off talking to somebody else. Like you call them up on the phone and you ask to meet, and then you sit and you talk with them and you talk through what the injury was, and you just kind of work it through in a very conversational way. But the second training we had was more like a scenario, like you're in the grocery store and there's, a communication between two people that is very, directed at a person that is very, inappropriate. And then what you do in that situation. And the interesting part about that one was actually joining the aggressor if you can, by saying, it sounds like today's been terribly stressful to you. And, like at this point, it was the clerk being rude to somebody who was checking out something, and they made a reference to their race. Joining that clerk to try to de-escalate the situation so that like the aggressive, statements stop. And also letting the person know who's the receiving, that wasn't okay, that wasn't right, and like balancing those two things, but having the skills and not being afraid to do that, but also caring for the person making that statement, because something isn't going on right for them either. I always think like hurt people. And there's going to be scenarios where it's too dangerous to say anything to the person who's saying something they shouldn't say. And so at that point, it's just about standing with the person who's being harmed and helping them get to a safe spot. So we learn all those different things, like to give you sort of an overview. And I bet there's other stuff we haven't even thought of, because I know True Story Theater, they don't leave you high and dry. They'll help you come up with scenarios to process.
So this is not the first time you've run this. I know Freya said she's been through it. Freya, did you go through it as part of the Hopkinton contingent, Hopkinton team?
Yeah, so we originally, I think, had the first offering of this event back in March, and we opened it to all the Freedom Team members and various people involved in Hopkinton organizations, like some of the schools or the Hopkinton town government people. So yeah, it was a lot of people from, I guess, town offices really involved in that first one. And like I said, it was extremely powerful. There was obviously power dynamics, which were immediately broken down to the fact that everybody came in on equal footing. I think over Zoom, it really helped being being able to see everybody on the screen as well. So I know Zoom isn't attractive to people, but I think actually the training being delivered over Zoom actually added to it and was very beneficial in the way that it was able to establish that common ground among everybody. So yeah, that was the original training back in March, and it was such a success that we've decided to offer another one. So we'll be offering another training, another set of the 2 sessions. So that's 2 sessions is the one training for people over age 21. So that'll be one cohort. And then we'll offer another set of trainings for people under age 21, specifically geared to high school and college students.
I have lots of questions about that. First question, are you limited to how many people can sign up for a session?
I don't believe so. So the first part of the adult session starts next Tuesday, May 18th. So probably by the end of this week, I will need to know everyone who's going to register. And so far we are up to about 70 people, which is great. And True Story Theater is able to accommodate us.
And what time on Tuesday is that?
It's 5:30 to 8 p.m.
Okay.
And, you know, some people may be grumbling because it's at the end of a work day in the evening. But as Freya said, the time just flies by. And the organizers, the facilitators really keep you engaged, and you want to be there, and you can just feel the energy with the people who are there, who really want to learn along with you and are your allies.
Okay. Now, is this something that True Story Theater came up with? Did they write this curriculum, or are these principles that they're just doing for this workshop?
You know, I think that there are a lot of active bystander trainings out there, so I can't speak for them, but what they do offer that's different is that they are all actors, and so they will act out some of the scenarios and then have us practice or use those as models. I've taken their training in person, and it's a bit different, where they do incorporate more of the improv acting than they do on Zoom. That's all I can say about that.
Okay. Is there a cost with this?
No, not to anyone who signs up. So we're very grateful to Dawn and her Hopkinton Youth and Family Services. Is covering the cost for this training for the adults and for the youth. And we have the support not only of the Freedom Team, but also the Hopkinton Youth Commission and the Hopkinton Cultural Council.
So there is a cost to it. It's just that it's being covered.
Yes.
Exactly.
And we recently received an earmark, and you know, Senator Spilka and Representative Dykema, we're so grateful, because it really allowed us to expand it, to offer it to middle school students as well. And you know, so I think we're very fortunate that we're well cared for as a community, and there were plans in the works to help with COVID stress. And as we know, COVID revealed so many things in our communities and brought so many things to the surface. And racism was one of those things. Classism was one of those things, you know, and to be able to address that as a community and do this community building work, it's a great time for that. It's like everything coming together on the head of a pin. We're just very fortunate.
It is, you know, you said it exactly right. It is a great time for that. There's so much more discussion. There are so many things that if you went 10 years ago, people would look at you and say, what are you talking about? When you talk about like being in a safe space, it's more than just physically safe now, you know, and the level of awareness is growing. And I think that's an incredibly positive step for me. It is terribly heartbreaking, you know, when you hear these stories, you know, of people who are discriminated, who are attacked. It's just, to my mind, it's just not what America is supposed to be. And there's so much more to that, with, you know, with just the way the society is set up. But the fact that this conversation is beginning is so exciting. So Dawn, could you tell me a little more about the middle school age potential? Is that its own separate workshop?
Yes, and this is literally in the works right now. We do have a date, and I'm going to cheat and look over at my calendar because I always get the dates wrong when I just speak them out. So it's Wednesday, June 16th at 5:30. It's not on our registration page just yet because it's still in the works, but we'll have that together soon. And right now we're working out what that training will look like, because a parent and a young person, or a set of parents, or a guardian or caregiver, or an adult, it could be a kid's favorite adult, joins with them, you know, helps them with this processing. And what we find sometimes is that the kids are way ahead of the adults. They really are. They, you know, in today's world, they're much less afraid of difference, and they're much more outspoken about calling it out when they see an injustice. And so the training for them might be how to modulate how you speak when you see an injustice. You know, I know some young people that you be the in your face kind of kiddo, right? And so like, how do you temper that? And yes, name the injustice, but also do so with love. Or it might be, you know, for a child who's experienced some sort of bullying or been hurt, for a parent to come alongside them, and then they join and they get to process this together, you know, and do this together as a way to open conversation. I know for myself, after I did the training, I was excited to eat dinner with my family and talk about it. And those became teachable moments. And we got to like, my husband's a theater guy, so we got to act out scenarios and like be goofy with each other at dinner and kind of say, well, what would you say? And what would you say? So, you know, it can be a point of opening dialogue and building family relationships as well. And so that's what we're hopeful for, that we'll get, you know, a set of families to join and take a risk and enjoy themselves with this.
Yeah, that's really great. That is really great. It's a little bit late in the year for me. I have been doing a very small thing, my part at the middle school for several years now. And I hope that there'll be another session in the fall from the next, during the next school year, because I'd love to work to promote that within the middle school system, and hopefully get everybody to go through that. I'd love to see our entire community go through that, and to give our entire community a reason to go through that. I'd like you all to think for a minute, and just give me one example of something that you took away from that, or an experience that you had after going through the training. The training that was impacted by your training. Kind of like an example of, you know, like why people would take this. Because a lot of people might think like, you know, I'm okay. Either I'm happy being a bystander because I don't want to get involved in, you know, whatever, or may think that they don't need it, that they understand it. So if we could just maybe anybody who's comfortable giving one little example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can jump in. I think the biggest takeaway, speaking as somebody who is part of social minority groups, I think for me, it really made me feel more connected to the town. And I said to Hopkinton Independent when I spoke to them about the training that sometimes being part of a social minority group or a cultural minority, sometimes it's so easy to feel like the world is just against you. And it's so easy to feel so exhausted and so down. And I think, going on that event and seeing all those people on Zoom, all those friendly faces that, were there because they really wanted to help people like me and other minority groups, that that thought and that memory brings me so much comfort, knowing that there are people out there that really want to try to help. So, when you're considering, thinking, oh, maybe I don't need to take this training, do it for your friends, do it for the people in the community that might be LGBT or part of a racial minority group. Do it for them. Do it because you want to make Hopkinton a home for everyone, no matter who they are, where they come from. Do it for the community, do it for your friends, do it for the people. And, nothing you learn is a waste. And I don't believe that this is a waste at all. 2.5 hours is really nothing in the grand scheme of things. So, do it for us.
Right, that's great. And now, while I send my next comment back to Freya, if anybody else on this call has something to share, just raise your hand for me so I know and I can see that you want to. But Freya, isn't that like what everybody wants? Doesn't everybody just want to feel that they're heard, that they have a connection? Like, I have an interesting thing going on in my life, and you have an interesting thing going on in your life, and we're all just people going down the road of life together.
Absolutely, Jim. I couldn't have said it better myself. Exactly. We're all just people traveling through this wild, crazy journey of life together. So, let's all help each other out. Let's make it as easy as possible for each other. And just promote exactly what the Freedom Team, just promote love, inclusion, and trust in everything we do.
Right. That's great. So I don't know if did anybody else have an example that they could share from experience of their training? Kathleen.
Yeah, I'm just going to piggyback off of what Freya just said. For me personally, it reminded me that I really need to spend a lot more time listening and talking less. And really, no matter how much I may be disagreeing with what the person who's across from me is saying or doing, there's always going to be some common ground. And it's that kernel of commonness that is so important for us to find as a way to start to build more unity and more empathy, and really start to really hear the other side. As you said, everybody wants to be a part of something and they want to be heard. And so by taking the time to really sit down with somebody and listen deeply, it doesn't mean that you have to compromise your own beliefs or your own integrity. It just means that you have to respect them enough to listen and to find whatever it is that's common. And from there, you can build community.
That's a great lesson. I have found, the more experience I have with relationship and living this life together, you know what? It's okay if we don't agree on everything. Like, if you don't like Star Wars, I might have had a problem with that, years ago, but I'm okay with that now. I understand that some people just don't value it perhaps as well as it should be valued, and that's okay. And it's like totally, and once you kind of let go of that, once you kind of like say, no, you need to understand, you need to agree and believe the way that I agree with, it just turns into a much richer tapestry of life, as they say. It's just like really interesting. All right. Oh, Sarah, please.
I was just going to say that I really appreciated it. It was a very healthy, I felt like, working environment that wasn't like us versus them. And it's something I really appreciate about the Hopkinton Freedom Team, is that everyone's doing their own self work. So one of the pieces of the training I really appreciated was working on when you've said something that someone takes to be offensive, and working on responses that are not defensive. I think, especially with everything that's going on in the town right now, there's, a real temptation towards defensiveness, towards, so working on responses when you're the one who's messed up. And I just really appreciated that time and space to practice accepting, listening, hearing without defensiveness, because we all need to do our own self-work. We all want, to be in a position of a learner. I just thought it was so healthy. Just really helpful.
Yep. Extremely helpful. It's critical. One of the things that gives me the most peace when I'm driving in my car is I see somebody cut me off or, be kind of a jerk on the road. And you know what? Sometimes I am. And sometimes it's just because I'm not paying attention, and I look like a jerk. And everybody has, as Kathleen said, everybody has a bad day once in a while, and give them a little slack. So yeah, that's a really important aspect, Sarah. Well, Dawn, everybody else said something. Do you have anything that you learned from the training that was a little kernel?
I got to use my skills right away. And I won't give you the scenario, but because I don't want to give anyone like ideas, like I don't need to replay something bad that happened. It, and it enabled me to still be, it was, in touch with the person who said what they said. It was not somebody known well to me, but I was at a location, receiving a service. And, so I was able to be thankful for the service, but also say, I'm really thankful that you're here today and you're doing this for me. And what you just said was really hard. I don't agree with you. And that's a really unkind statement that isn't true about that other person. And then that person, they didn't dance through, the tulips saying, you're right, I've come to my senses, but they continued to yell at me and scream. And I said, I think we're just going to agree to disagree. Like I said, I am so thankful for you and what you did today. And we'll disagree, I guess, on that piece. And I was able to move on to the next part of what I had to do. But yeah, like sometimes people aren't going to like embrace, your interaction with them, but you can feel centered and calm in truth and knowing like you spoke your truth and you did so in love. Like I held nothing against that person afterwards either, whereas I might have chewed it all up and been like really negative about it later. Like, can you believe blah, blah, blah. I didn't have any of that because, like, I was able to be authentic and real. And then, I was pretty psyched. I got to use my new skills too. so I was like, oh, like puffed up about it. Like, good, it works. Like it really works. You get through it. It may not be fun at the moment, but you get through it. And it does increase your self-esteem because you can handle tough conversations and difficult.
Yep. All right. So now I'm going to ask you just one question because I'm really interested about this. There is one word that you did not say while you were speaking, and I'm curious if it was intentional. You did not say the word but. Was that intentional?
Me?
Yes.
I didn't say but. I said and.
Yep.
I tend to always do that. I learned that. Like.
That's an excellent skill.
Years ago, I work on that one.
Yeah. I used to say but all the time. And I used to say it all the time until I learned that when you say but, you negate everything you just said. It's like, you're a great person, but you're terrible, and people forget that. And you use and instead of but, and it doesn't detract from the first statement. So that's a superpower word, I think.
And Jim, two things can be true. You can value someone and love them and not be thrilled by something they said to you. Isn't that kind of parenting sometimes? Yeah,
it is. But isn't that a hard thing? It's a hard thing. Like for somebody to say, what you just did was a selfish thing. And you say, you think I'm a selfish person? It's like, I didn't say that. I said this one act was a selfish act that you did nothing about you in the whole totality. But that to me is a very hard thing. It's almost as hard as if I give one of my children a compliment, but not the other one. The other one's like, what's wrong with me? And I didn't say anything was wrong with you. Well, you said something nice about them, but not me. You know, it's like perception can really grow to be more important than it actually was in a conversation. Anyways, I would like to, this has been a really interesting conversation on the active bystander training. And I hope that you get thousands of people that sign up for this. And I hope that you're able to offer it more, because it would be great for our entire community to go through this. In addition to that, let's talk a little bit more just about the Freedom Team. What have you been doing? Are there any other events that are coming up? Maybe give a little recap for people if for some reason they haven't heard of you yet, kind of who you are and what your goal is.
Okay, I'm happy to give a summary of what the Freedom Team is, and then we'll talk about other things that we're doing. So the Freedom Team was formed last July. We currently have about 30 members that reach different points, many points of the community. And it is a neutral, safe space where we can each grow and learn more about social injustices and bias and our own implicit biases, where we can learn and lean into that together. And it's also an opportunity for us to bring that awareness and education to the broader community. And we love to collaborate not only among ourselves, because we have a number of leaders from all over the town, but also with other groups and like-minded people who want to work with us. And so that's one aspect. The other aspect is that we can offer people who have been biased, who have been the victim of bias, an incident of bias, or who has witnessed an incident of bias, to come and talk to a few members and just to bear witness to their pain, and just as a place where they can feel like they've been heard. And if they want to move forward as part of their healing, we do offer a way to do that, to facilitate further discussion using a transformative justice model. And people can contact us through our website, which is hopkintonfreedomteam.org, and send us an email, or there is a hotline that goes through the police department, but it is only, all messages are heard by the chief of police, not to file a report or anything. It's to just see if a crime has been committed. And if not, then he refers all the calls to the Freedom Team. And then we choose who would be the most appropriate small group of people to talk to that person or persons. So as Freya said earlier, our motto, if you will, is LIT. We want to provide LIT to the town: love, inclusion, and trust. And we want to make everybody feel welcome, respected. We want to embrace our diversity and really work towards more unity in our community. So we do have a number of projects that we have been working on and that we're working on now. And I'm going to ask Freya to talk to us about something very exciting that she's working on for June.
Thank you, Kathleen. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here talking about this. I really hope that Jim would ask. With the addition of more members to the Freedom Team, because it's been growing ever since it was founded, we have been able to represent more groups and improve our representation, and especially our representation and advocacy for the LGBT community has really improved as well. And this is just brilliant because we really need movement here. Like Jim, you said earlier, it's absolutely heartbreaking to hear that people can still be discriminated against. And I completely agree with you. And that's part of, what motivates myself and many of us here on the Freedom Team. A lot of people don't actually realize that the only federal legal protections LGBT people have are at the workplace and the right to marry. Otherwise, in many states, it's still legal to discriminate against LGBT people in healthcare, employment benefits, housing, and just so many more things. So the Hopkinton Freedom Team is a big organization, but we do often break into smaller subcommittees to sort of work on projects with other members. I have a supporting role in many various projects going on, but the majority that I co-lead and help to organize do involve the LGBT community. So this is really exciting because obviously June is coming up, our big Pride Month, and there's a lot of movement within our organization right now around LGBT inclusivity and acceptance in town. So I'll just share a little bit about those. So the first one that we worked on was we proposed about a month ago a big essentially proposal to the Hopkinton town government to instill a diversity and inclusion crosswalk in downtown Hopkinton. So fingers crossed it'll go through. And essentially we have proposed to paint a crosswalk in the center of town, rainbow colors, trans colors, and black and brown to represent racial justice. So hence the diversity and inclusion crosswalk. And this is a really powerful symbolic thing as it's so public and so visible. And it's a really powerful way for minority groups to reclaim that public space that they've been pushed out of for so long. And our town welcomes so many guests. And, we're the host of the marathon. We welcome people from all over the world, and having this such public visible sign of love and acceptance is just a really beautiful way to show people that we love you and accept you, not just for what you do in our town, but for who you are. And so I'm really excited. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that will go through town government, maybe 2022 when the main street construction stuff is done. The other thing we're working on is the EMC murals. If some of you have seen those, go check them out. They're amazing. Smitha Ram, who's a Freedom Team member and also in SAC, and I are working to design an LGBT mural to propose to the Hopkinton Cultural Commission. And Smitha has done a beautiful job. It's this lovely Love is Love mural. So hopefully if that gets proposed, you might see that in town as well in the future. And finally, our most exciting one is we are very proud to potentially, and I really stress potentially, because as you can imagine, there are so many logistics to sorting this out, but I am optimistic and we are making very positive progress. We are proud to potentially be hosting Hopkinton's first Pride Parade this June. Oh, I get goosebumps just speaking about it because it's so exciting. So yeah, June is commonly referred to as Pride Month, and it's a way to represent various LGBTQIA+, so that's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersexual, and asexual plus communities. And they're essentially a whole host of events that are hosted throughout the country to celebrate this community. Pride events are fun, they're upbeat, and they're just centered around celebrating LGBT people and giving them representation. They promote equality and understanding and highlight visibility for LGBT people, showing that they're part of our town. So our plan is to host sort of like a parade, but obviously, as you can understand with the COVID restrictions, it is a little bit of a logistical nightmare. So at the moment, the plan is to invite different organizations to walk and do almost like a pride walk, I guess, around the track, and invite different organizations to be present and to bring representatives of their organizations with them to walk 3 laps of a track. And unfortunately, due to the COVID restrictions, we most likely are unable to allow spectators to this event. But I've already spoken to Jim, and he says that HCAM is on board, and they will hopefully, if it all goes ahead, be there to broadcast and film the event live so people can spectate safely from their own homes, which is really exciting. So I just wanted to give a really big shout out to HCAM and all the people who I've contacted in town about this event. Hopkinton Public Health people, especially the town nurse, Miss Morrow. If you're watching this, thank you so much. All the Hopkinton Public Schools facilities people, Dr. Kavanaugh, the amount of people that are on board with this, trying to support making it happen is just unbelievable. So yeah, hopefully we can make this a reality for you and everybody in the town. But if it doesn't happen this year, I just want everyone to take comfort knowing that, everybody here is working to make this happen, and we have helped lay the groundwork and the foundation for potentially future action. So if it can't go ahead this year, maybe this will make it easier to plan one maybe next year in the future. So stay tuned for more on all of those things.
Wow, that was a lot. That was fantastic. And I'm definitely planning on it happening this year because we'd love to be there. So it's really interesting. I'd like to just circle back as our time begins to grow short. Kathleen, when you were describing a lot of the things that the Freedom Team are there for. There are certain things on there that are big things. You have a hotline on your website, and that rings the chief of police's telephone. And when things get referred to the Freedom Team, you said there's a justice model that your organization follows in helping people. And so am interested to hear, like, some people may be hesitant to, share themselves and their story because they're afraid that, it's going to be, starting something really big. And I was just wondering if one of you could describe some of the, generally some of the types of interactions that you would have helping people in our community who need it.
Yeah, and just because it goes through the police chief's phone, it is completely confidential. So when someone is referred to us, if that's how they choose to contact us, we are offering a safe space for them. So it would only involve 2 or 3 people on the team who would probably, would make the most sense to talk with this particular person, depending on what their situation is. And so the person, and it's completely voluntary, and the purpose is not only to heal, but also to try to empower the person who has been harmed or who has witnessed bias, and to help them to figure out what it is that they want to see happen. It may just be talking to 2 or 3 members of the team, and that's all that they want to take it to. They just want to be heard. It may be that they would like to have us act as a facilitator and invite the person who caused the harm to them or the bias. And so we would reach out to that person. And again, it's voluntary. The person may decline, or the person may agree to enter into a conversation. And then we would facilitate that conversation. And it's again another opportunity to listen, for the harm doer to listen to how their action or words impacted that person, and then to again go to the person who was harmed to see what is it that they want to see happen. Is it some sort of apology? Is it some sort of act? Or again, it may just stop there, but it's all, the power is in the person who comes to us initially. And that's loosely what the transformative justice model is.
Okay, so that's, I think, really, really important to hear, that it's all driven by the person who has been harmed, what they're comfortable with, what they would like to try to attempt, and sounds like you're there to support them at whatever level that they're comfortable or needing.
Right, and throughout this process, I mean, the members of the team are neutral, so we are not taking sides. We are there as facilitators and listening with open arms.
Okay. Now, this is not to be disparaging of just regular folk, because I'm a regular folk too. But like, do you have members that are therapists or have training or skills along this model?
To be truthful, no, I don't think that any of us have received formal training in transformative justice models, but we do have people such as Dawn, who is a very skilled social worker. We have other professionals on the team, and it's more using our own skills, whether they're from a professional background or interest in handling situations. So that's why we would look to what kind of issues are in front of us and then try to match the correct individuals on the team to handle this situation.
All right. Okay, so we're down to about 5 minutes, and I just wanted to just put Sarah on the spot a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, and tell me a little bit about how you came to be on the Freedom Team, what your passion and goal here is.
Well, I'm on the Freedom Team because Kathleen asked me. You know, I just think doing life together well, in community well, can be a difficult task. And I really believe, you know, in my own faith tradition, my own religious background, I mean, I think the transformative justice model is really, I am a big fan from my faith tradition. I think it's really restorative and healing, really seeking to listen and understand and bring reconciliation. Really is what I think, you know, my faith tradition really emphasizes that. So Kathleen asked me if I'd like to be part. I said, yes, please. She was looking for a clergy representative. I feel like I've learned a lot. I think, you know, I've been involved more with, you know, racial reconciliation and some diversity work along the lines of race for the last decade. And so I think it's been a great experience for me to learn, but really the model of restorative justice, I just think is really healing and restorative and necessary. If we're going to form stronger communities, we're going to have to wade through some differences and some conflict. You know, I think when you look at everything that's happening now, being able to sit with tension, being able to sit with unanswered questions without defensiveness, it's just super important for us to actually become a stronger community. So
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn, the last question is going to go to you. And that is, I'm curious, in the professional circles in which you circulate, is this a unique thing? Do a lot of towns have Freedom Teams? How do we stack?
I think that Hopkinton is a leader in this sense. Well, Kathleen is a leader really to step forward after hearing about Natick's Freedom Team. I believe that's the first one. Mm-hmm. And now there are Freedom Teams in Waltham. There's a brand new one in Franklin, Mass. All sort of, you know, led and started by the same person who Kathleen knows. So I'll let Kathleen take that a little bit so that she can share the other locations. I know Westborough's looking into it. Not sure.
Okay, Kathleen.
I know that Waltham has one, and I just heard that Wellesley, I believe, is starting one too. So it is spreading. And Jamil Adams is the creator of this model.
And is that person in Natick? That person where?
He used to be. Now he's in Franklin.
Okay. All right. Well, it's always a pleasure talking to all of you. You're all awesome. Very awesome. I'm so grateful for our community that you are amongst us. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you so much, Jim, for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Mm-hmm.
All
Thanks,
right.
Jim.
All right. And it won't be long. We'll have you back. We'll have you back for even more.
Great. Thank you.
And okay. And also thank you to the viewers of Hopkinton who make our community the great place that it is. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you sign up for the active bystander training. It sounds like some great skills. I hope that you are safe, and I hope that you take care of yourself. And I look forward to seeing you next time on the Hangout Hour. Good night, everyone.